They need to reach out into the world. Forget about state policies and the state institutions and how they are going to give you regulations. You do it. Go out there, reach into the world. You have so many more opportunities. You strategize for the country, you help your sector.
We welcome you to the Amazing TV Rise Up program. Today we have a guest, Dr. George Cooke. He's from University of Colombo. He'll be visiting lecturing in several institutions, and he was previously diplomat representing Sri Lanka. So we welcome to the program, Doctor. So let me ask you this question: how you ended up and interested on diplomacy and foreign affairs?
So that happened quite some time ago. I was not keen on this subject or looking at this subject. I like to cook. So my main aim was to go into hospitality. I wanted to go into food. I wanted to go into the tourism sector. I wanted to go into those areas. But then somewhere along the line, I met with a person, a family friend, who insisted that I follow certain courses in diplomacy and international relations, the late Dr. Vernon Mendes. He was the one who greatly influenced me to get into this particular field. And thereafter, I attended lots of programs of study, gained a lot of experience in the field, sat the foreign service exams, got into the foreign service, and yeah, time has gone by. So that's how I first came into IR and diplomacy a very long time ago.
So if I ask, what is diplomacy and foreign affairs, if you define it in your own way?
So diplomacy is the tool that we use in foreign affairs, and foreign affairs is a very key policy in any country. It is said to be an extension of domestic policy, but it is also a lot more than that. Countries have to coexist with each other. You and I can change our neighborhoods, countries can't. Then we start studying geopolitics, how countries work with each other, how they have problems, they have border disputes, they trade with each other, there's tourism between these countries. There are so many other areas that we see gradually developing and growing. And this is where we begin to understand that foreign policy is one of the most crucial sectors of any state. Because if we look at any area, any ministry in a country, and we look at the subject areas that come under it, there is a foreign affairs element everywhere. We need trade. We need to send our products out there. We need to have contacts out there. We need to get things from out there. We need people to come and invest. We want to take our investors out there. We want to attract people for tourism. We want to send our people for tourism. We engage in international finance, international banking. There is so much of interconnectivity. Look at education. We are traveling for studies. We are having study programs coming from overseas. We are making our syllabus better. We're trying to attract the best standards. Now, all of that is being done in connection with the international community. So, foreign policy should be number one, or at least number two if you're going to put defense as number one. It has to be right up there when it comes to focus, policy formulation, implementation, because that's the future. We are an island. But I always say we are not an island in that sense of the word. We are not isolated, maroon, floating somewhere in the Indian Ocean. We have been connected with the world for centuries. That connectivity continues to grow. And this is where we've got to understand that without a sound foreign policy and a very good diplomatic apparatus to implement that foreign policy, that is where diplomacy comes into the picture.
Right. So you mentioned that we have very rich connections with the other world, but and it was a very optimistic way of thinking. And to be honest, are we, when we consider our current position as a country, Sri Lanka, have we got into that exact position? Have we used our geopolitics effectively?
We have missed a lot of points. We have missed a lot of opportunities. We have implemented a lot of wrong policies. We have made a lot of mistakes along the way. We've had achievements. We've done very well in certain areas at certain times too. In more recent times, we have not done well. If you wonder why we haven't done well, if we look at the country and the location that we have, we identify ourselves to be in the heart of the Indian Ocean. There are other countries that are formulating Indo-Pacific policies. The United States is talking about a policy. Japan is talking about a policy. Countries in the European Union and them collectively are also talking about policies. Australia is talking about a policy. Where is our policy? How are we capitalizing on the location? We are sitting in the middle of it. They are far away and they are formulating policies on how they are going to interact with this part of the world. That is where you see how important our location is. If we go back to the turn of the last century, if you go back late 1800s into the 1900s, people like Admiral Mahan were talking about the importance of the Indian Ocean. So this is not a new thing that has emerged. This is not something that has come up in recent years. The Indian Ocean has been a very important conduit between East and West. Trade has taken place. This has been going on for centuries. And this is where we have never capitalized on this. We've talked about that word position, we've talked about geography, we've been talking about it. We highlight it. We are talking about it right now too. But when it comes to actual policies that are being formulated, there's a lot that's lacking. If we talk about our connectivity based where we are with the rest of this region, we are in close proximity. We are sitting in South Asia, but we are in close proximity on one side to Africa, on the other side to East Asia. Now, have we really used that to enhance our connections with Africa? We have not. With the non-aligned movement, thankfully there was the non-aligned movement, we saw relations really growing. But then as the non-aligned movement lost momentum, so did our relations with those African countries. With Southeast Asia, with ASEAN, we can do so much. We had an opportunity of joining ASEAN at its creation in 1967. We decided not to, whatever the reason may have been at that particular point. We tried 10 years later. The economy wasn't good and they were not interested in our membership anymore. They didn't tell us that directly, but we have to understand it. We have since joined the ASEAN Regional Forum, which is at least a forum in which we are having close connectivity with ASEAN countries. But we can do a lot more in terms of being a gateway into South Asia for countries in the West. We can be a country that is looking to consolidate key allies in Southeast Asia, in Africa, in other parts of South Asia. Going beyond that, not just looking at our immediate neighborhood. What are we doing with countries that sit in West Asia, Eastern Europe, countries in Central Asia? We have little or nothing to do with countries in Central Asia, and that's not too far away. What are we doing really to make our position that much more important for countries in the Far East? How are we really consolidating with countries like Japan? We messed up relations a few years ago when we stopped certain projects. We've had an up and down relationship with China right throughout, depending on governments that have come in and gone. And this is where we have never looked at it from a Sri Lankan point of view. We've always had accusations where people will point fingers and say, oh, that person is pro-China. That person is pro-America. Oh, that one is anti-India. This one is pro-Pakistan. Where is the pro-Sri Lanka? That's what we need. Forget about being pro or anti any other country. You don't have to worry about them. They will worry about themselves. They have their priorities sorted out. They have their strategies. They know what they're doing. What is our pro-Sri Lanka stance? Not pro-green party, blue party, yellow party, red party. Not those party stances. What is the pro-Sri Lankan stance that everybody is going to agree to? It is a democracy and there are diversity of views. But we must have a confluence. Ideas must come together. This is where we need a Sri Lankan policy, an action plan. I mean, going forward, our location will continue to just be a location if we don't utilize it.
What is your dream Sri Lankan policy, if you are someone to decide that?
This is where we need to have a very strategic plan of where we want to be at least in the next 50 years. Very often we're looking at the next election, because we're concerned about getting re-elected. We don't want to get defeated, or we want to get elected if we are not already elected. So this is where we have to put that aside. There has to be a strategizing where you're going to bring people from key sectors who are going to sit down, who are going to plan things out for the next 10 years, 20, 30, 40, at least for the next 50 years. Countries like China already know where they want to be in 2049 at their centenary. Sri Lanka is on the eve of its 75th anniversary, and we are scrambling to survive. We're not trying to get anywhere. We want to just not sink, not go down, because we are in such a bad situation. So you see the difference there. Now, we have to be mindful that going forward, if we don't bring key sectors together, if we don't have that strategy or that vision, with that vision, just having the vision alone is not enough. It just becomes words. You need to have a national action plan, not a project in which you're trying to attract investment. Very often we want investment. We don't care what the investment is as long as it is investment. We just want the dollars. No, that's wrong. We need to have an action plan where those investments are going to fit into our plan, not the other way around. Because those companies, those investors, those multinationals that are coming in are coming because they see low cost of labor, low resource cost, maybe shipping is easier for them. They are looking at benefits for them. What is the benefit for us? We need to be mindful that any investment that is brought into this country fits into a national plan which will feed into that 50-year goal as to where we will be. We may not be there in 50 years. That's okay. Other countries are doing that. Those people who formulate those strategies will never see the results of them, but they are implementing them for the good of the country. That is what we must always be mindful of. And we really need this national strategy and an action plan which is going to bring all key sectors together. That is the way forward.
So, what are the challenges and opportunities if we have to obtain such a national plan in managing this overseas assistance? Because we have seen with examples that overseas assistant, development assistant, we use as a way to get commissions for politicians, and we jeopardize embassies and foreign relations. As you mentioned, the Japan, the cancellation of light railway, and there could be many other projects which has been cancelled in such way. So, what are the challenges in existing social, economic, cultural setup of Sri Lanka need to be changed to be a sustainably developed country?
Firstly, we need to have that vision. We need to know what we want for our country. Those other countries in our neighborhood or countries beyond have gotten to where they are because they had vision. They had an aim and a goal and they went after it. Now, we need to have that. We need to visualize this country moving forward. It's not a case of just changing everything and having only infrastructure. There should be social change as well. Infrastructure development is great. The highways are wonderful because they are great for connectivity as long as nobody is making anything off of it. Now, that must not be tolerated at all. Corruption has to be rooted out completely. If you get a salary and you have applied for that job and you have gotten it, you work for that. There's no other commission or cut that is coming to you. That must not be allowed. If foreign companies come to this country and they face officials, they should expose those people who are demanding those commissions because they are ruining the country. Because remember, they are giving those commissions and they will charge Sri Lanka for that. So Sri Lanka is paying those individuals in a different way. So this has got to stop. We've got to root out, and one of our biggest challenges is corruption. Corruption at all levels. It has got to be stopped. It has got to be rooted out. Otherwise, we are not going to see proper progress on any front. That's on one side. Vision being the key factor, having that vision of going forward, having no corruption, but also having commitment and passion for this country. And that is not something that we can leave only to those at the top. This has to be something that everybody, every level of society, every strata of society realizes that we are doing this for the country. Look at a country like Singapore. We are told that Singapore is very strict. Don't drop a toffee wrapper, don't put any chewing gum, don't do anything. And on my first visit to Singapore a long time ago, my first idea was there must be police everywhere monitoring you. No. I was there for about 10 days and I only saw 2 policemen at the end of the stay because there had been an accident on the highway and they were there. That's the only time I saw Singaporean police. Because people
Not even the cameras.
no. At that time, that technology wasn't that advanced. But people's mindsets were such that they don't do it. Now you walk on the streets in Sri Lanka, you see people going in vehicles, they're throwing things out of their shutters. What is the problem in taking that empty milk packet or juice box or can home and put it in your dustbin? Do you have to throw it out of your window? Are you trying to ensure that those who are sweeping the roads have a job? Is that what your passion is, to make sure that they have work to do? Really? Can't you take that home? Do you need to break rules, break regulations, keep doing those things, causing more chaos, complete destabilization of society? We don't love this country. That is what has happened. People don't love it. People just don't care about it. You know, people keep complaining, saying, oh, Sri Lanka is in a bad position. Sri Lanka is in a bad position. People have put Sri Lanka into this position.
It's not only the politicians.
Yeah. People have elected people, right? So when we blame the politicians, let's also blame the people. And lots of those people who put people into power then say, oh, we're leaving the country because the country is in a bad situation. So you cause a problem and you go. And many have done that. And I personally know people who have voted in certain ways and then they've decided, no, now we don't like those policies, they're going abroad. Wow, okay, you just leave. Let the others clean up the mess. So individuals matter. There has to be awareness building at every level. We must have ownership of this country. We must realize that this country does not belong only to the politicians, only to families, only to certain individuals. This country belongs to everybody who has been born here, who has citizenship in this country. It belongs to each and every one of us. What are we doing to make a change? And this is where very often we keep saying, we want them to change, we hope they will change, we wish they will change. Yeah, you can hope and wish, but you must do something about it. You must make that change happen. That's where you walk the talk, awareness building, getting people to engage, getting people to know. Education becomes so very important because at the end of the day, many people don't know basic history of Sri Lanka. Forget about, the time of the kings or the colonial periods. You ask people who was the second prime minister. You ask people who was the first prime minister and people don't know. I have met people who don't know. And I'm not talking about students who have gone to some exclusive school. I'm talking about people who are like, oh, must be so-and-so, must be so-and-so. It's so frightening to think that we have people in this country who are so ignorant about this country, but we will talk about the country. We will talk about the problems, talk about the challenges, talk about these things, but we don't know the fabric of this country. We don't know the people in this country. You mention a community and people go, what's that? They should be, who is that? Not what's that? It's not a thing, it's a group of people. People don't know. People are just not aware. And this has become such a big challenge where either people through lack of opportunity don't know or they just choose not to know. Now, how can we go forward? You can't leave everything to people who are elected officers to do. We have to also be contributing. We must be making a change. And that's where when we look at the opportunities, we don't have to wait for them to do it. We can do it. We must talk to different sectors. We must bring sectors together. Look at the private sector. Profit-oriented, driven, they are the engine of growth. They are doing so much for this country. They need to reach out into the world. Forget about state policies and the state institutions and how they are going to give you regulations. You do it. Go out there, reach into the world. You have so many more opportunities. You strategize for the country. You help your sector, whatever your sector may be, whether it's tea, whether it's cashew nuts, whether it's chilies, whatever it may be, whatever the sectors that you are in, they can do a lot. They must come together. It's not a case of your profit, my profit, and how we are going to compete. We've got to now think we are Sri Lankan companies. We've got to save the country, because if we wait for others to save it, we'll be doomed.
True. Actually, the integrated policy, like integrated individuals to action,
Absolutely.
stopping the lip service
Yeah.
to do something.
Yeah.
So with that, know that you have initiated Aware Lounge.
Aware log is actually a hybrid term. It's bringing awareness and dialogue together. So it's Aware log. So Aware log actually started with a blog in 2017, an international relations blog that I started. But then gradually it has now transformed into an international relations platform. It is virtual. We do have physical sessions as well. But this is a platform that has created multiple spaces for engagement in international relations, diplomacy, foreign policy, and all areas that come under this very vast international studies arena. Because there are so many areas. Culture is a part of it. Geopolitics is a part of it. We look at economics, that's a part of it. Banking is a part of it. Whether it's film, whether it's music, whether it's poetry, there's so much of interconnectivity, because this is all about international understanding and promoting that. So this is chiefly an education platform which is building awareness, but also a space for people to learn, to engage, to gain knowledge, to share experiences. And we have things like the Aware Log Lecture Forum, where we bring a speaker who delves on a certain topic. The topic might be to with an international anniversary. It might be some kind of national year at that point, a milestone year. And we've had, from 2021 to date, we've seen a lot of changes in Sri Lanka. In the 6 months of last year, in 2021, we were able to do a lot of online events because of COVID. And we had to jump online. Everything went virtual. Come 2022, and now we have power cuts. So if I can be connected, the speaker can't be connected. Members of the audience can't connect. There were logistical problems which we had taken into consideration, but we didn't stop. We then started posting all of it on YouTube. So we have the YouTube platform. It's there on YouTube. It's on Facebook. It's on Instagram. It's on Twitter. And those social platforms have really generated an interest where people, like you just asked me, what is Aware Log? What is it doing? People are reaching out and asking. People are saying, how can I contribute? What role can I play? When is the next event coming up? How can we attend it? Is it physical? Is it only virtual? So we've done a lot of collaborations as well. For example, we did a program on the Indo-Pacific and looking at the policy with the Japan Institute of International Affairs that we organized through the Embassy of Japan in Sri Lanka. We've also done programs with the French Embassy where we looked at certain international issues like the death penalty, how other countries are dealing with it, what are the international experiences. We've done programs where we've talked about music and culture. We did a program recently where we marked certain key anniversaries in the life of Claude Debussy, musicians. We've had platforms looking at a variety of areas. We have something called the Culture Site, which brings together music, drama, dance, poetry, all forms. We've had French authors. We had Professor Sarat Chandra's daughter coming on board from the US. And Kisa on that occasion didn't just talk about the father and his plays. She talked about the father as a person. Who was Professor Sarat Chandra? For us, he is this doyen in the industry, but who was he as a father? How was he? To recollect, to talk about him. So that was a very different take on that. We've had people coming on other platforms, which is to do with diplomacy. It's called the Decoding Diplomacy podcast, where we have ambassadors based in Colombo or Sri Lankan ambassadors abroad who share their experiences of the diplomatic world. As a student growing up, we didn't have interactions with ambassadors. We never got to meet them. We didn't get to talk to them. They were seen in the papers. They were seen on TV. We might hear about them. But these are platforms where people are able to interact with them, get to know them, ask them questions when we had the live sessions. And this really generates interest on their part because they know what people in Sri Lanka are thinking. And they also understand us better. Because when we ask them those questions, they're thinking their priorities might be changing. They're looking at those things. We've got other platforms too where we look at a series. Now, this year we did a couple of series. We focused on BIMSTEC because this was the year that we hosted the BIMSTEC meeting, and we did a series where we brought academics from each BIMSTEC country. Each one had an episode. We did a series on Afghanistan where we looked at Afghan views, and we focused chiefly on people who have left Afghanistan. What is life like now? A former ambassador, a diplomat who had to flee and gain refugee status in another country, a medical doctor who has gone to another country, different people, someone from the fashion industry who has gone out of Afghanistan. So this really gives us an opening into what is happening in the world. We have a lot of problems inside, no doubt about that, but we need to know the world. We also marked the Australia-Sri Lanka anniversary this year. It's 75 years of diplomatic relations in 2021. And we highlighted several Sri Lankans in Australia who are contributing in different sectors. So we had a novelist, we had an artist, we had a lawyer, we had an economist, we had an educationist. People who have gone to Australia and contributed and who are doing very well in their fields. They've not forgotten Sri Lanka. They are Sri Lankan at heart. And they shared their experience of how we can enhance ties, what we can do going forward, how we can improve relations. And it really makes you stop and think. There are so many people out there who want to help Sri Lanka, who are willing to do that. They love platforms of this nature because they can contribute back to their own country. And this has generated interest among students of international relations, academia, general public, people who want to know what is IR. They've heard of IT. Now, what is IR? And they are interested because going forward, there's going to be so much more opportunity in the field of IR. And Awarelogue is trying to make a humble contribution towards greater awareness and dialogue in the field.
Great. And to end the discussion, I would ask you, what is your dream, Sri Lanka in 2040 or 2030?
This is a country which has an abundance of natural resources. Take a product like tea. We are still exporting tea leaves. Other countries are buying our tea and they are converting it into tea oil, tea essence. They're doing so much more with it. We need to look at that technology transfer. This is a country where we need to focus very much on innovation, technology, how it is going to improve not only our lives, but improve what we do, improve our products, improve our infrastructure. The world is moving ahead. We have to be in tune with the world, otherwise we are going to get left behind. We don't want to be this quaint little country in the Indian Ocean, which is very much like the 1970s. Yeah, very sweet, very nice, very romantic way of looking at Sri Lanka, but we need to move forward. We need to go forward. And that is where, if we look at where we want to be, in 2048, at our centenary, we must be targeting that. We must start thinking of how this country should be, what levels of advancement we should have achieved. And I'm talking about all sectors. This is where this country has the brains. We have people. So many people who are leaving this country are going to other countries. A lot of them are being headhunted. They're being attracted to those countries. Professionals are being taken. Now they are going to those countries and making immense contributions. Imagine if those brains were here, how much more we could do. We have to do a lot in terms of re-attracting these people back to Sri Lanka. Even those who have migrated decades ago, what contribution they can make, bring them together. We need a national mechanism which is going to reach out, as I said, into all sectors, but also make sure that we are going to really see a technology-driven country that is going to be transformed from what it is right now. We cannot remain backwards. We cannot let that happen. We need to move forward.
Yes, we need to move forward. So with that message, I'm saying goodbye to Dr. George Cooke. Well, thank you for participating with us. and sharing much knowledge and insights. And we're looking forward to move forward with knowledge and a dialogue. That's a great initiative. So thank you, Doctor. Thank you so much for joining with us.